Hi, friends. Good evening, and welcome to yet another live stream of Dr. HR. Today, I'm very happy. I have a friend. I have a HR practitioner who hardly needs any introduction. And yes, you guessed it right. We have Sahil Nayar with us today. Somebody who is a veteran when it comes to practicing HR. He has been across sectors and is also actively interested in academia. He teaches in a couple of IIMs and IITs. And yes, last 13, 14 years has been with KPMG and very, very accomplished HR practitioner in India. I'm glad to also let you know that today's topic that he has rather, recommended is on the theme of empowering employability, a theme which is very, very close to the heart of, certainly young aspirants who are wanting to make a transition from campus to corporate. So without further ado, let me hand it over to Sahil. But before I do that, the format of today's session is going to be pretty simple. What we are going to do is we would have a candid chat, no holds barred, and straight from heart. And certainly, we would discuss plenty of issues with regard to employability as a theme. Uh, First and foremost, welcome to Dr. HR live chat, Sahil. Always a pleasure having interaction with you and learning the nuances related to HR from you. And my first question on the theme is, Sahil, help me understand, help my viewers understand what comes to your mind when we talk about empowering employability. Everyone interprets it differently. I wanted to know from you, I don't need any definition. What is empowering employability to Sahil?
So, Anil, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. Before I get to answering the question, I must say, Anil, I'm a big fan of yours. Being Dr. HR yourself, you embody the fact that reverse mentoring is the way to go in today's world. It is a classic situation of the doctor asking the patient what medicine should the doctor have. So I don't think I'm qualified to subscribe to the doctor what medicine the doctor should have, but we all are in our own right doing a little bit of work that we can in this space to make a difference. And what I would possibly try and share with all your viewers and my followers today is a few examples or a few instances that I have personally been doing over the years to make a difference in this space of industry and academia. So, once again, thank you so much for having me on your show. Coming to your question on empowering employability. Anil, it's so paradoxical that when I was way back in the years in college, I was the head of the placement cell, and we used to call it industry academia. I think Dr. Indu Shahani at HR College had given this name and made me the president of that cell because she very firmly believed that we should have a lot of corporates that come into HR College to share with us what is happening in the real world, while, of course, we learn from academia. I won't disclose my age, but it has been a long, long time since I passed out from HR college. And even today, when we get invited to various panels, forums, industry bodies, we are asked the same question: how do we bridge the industry academia gap? Now, this really bothers me a lot because if everyone is trying to put their 2 cents into the ocean, by now the ocean should have, water levels should have risen. But still, we are talking about the gap. There are three broad reasons why we are talking about this gap even today. Number one, employability isn't a challenge. I think fundamentally the question that we all need to ask ourselves as young students, management, engineering graduates are we employable? I think that's the fundamental question we need to ask ourselves. Now, the backdrop to that is why do we need to ask ourselves the question, are we employable? We've gone to a good college, we've got a good degree. I think the degree should be enough. But the degree, my dear friends, is not enough. It may sound a bit harsh. I may be giving a very opinionated view. It may be even polarized. But it is always better to err on the side of caution. A degree is only a passport. A degree is only a passport. You got to get the visa. And getting the visa is about understanding the changing dynamics, the changing rules, the changing laws of every country, every stream, every function that you want to join. What HR was a decade ago is no longer what HR is today. A go to market strategy in ATL or BTL is very different what it was 10 years ago. Digital marketing has got completely revamped with Gen AI taking center stage. And therefore, what we are studying, with all due respect to the entire syllabus and the fantastic professors that we have in our country, the gap still continues because we need to bridge the gap with skill sets that help solve problems. Point number two. Point number three, very quickly to answer your opening question. How many students are running the race of gaining certifications without gaining skills or knowledge? And I think it's important for us to call that out because when recruiters look at your CV, they get very, very impressed by the number of certifications you have. But when they ask you a case study or a situation or a problem, if you're not able to stand tall and answer it not just academically but even practically through some of the internships that you've done or hands-on experience that you have, I would say this is one of the most challenging times that we are in, where knowledge is everywhere. In fact, knowledge has got so commoditized that you and I don't need to go to the erstwhile library and order a book and wait for a couple of months for the book to come. We can just Google it at our fingertips. It's so easy. Gen AI has made it even more easier with so many chatbots. But the question is, are you skilled enough to give the right prompt? Because the wrong prompt is going to give you the wrong answer. And third, you may have a lot of knowledge, but do you have that skill? You may know all the strokes in swimming, you may know how current comes in, you may know everything, but have you entered that swimming pool? Because if you haven't jumped into the water, you will not know what chlorine will do to your skin. You will not know that when you get caught in a current, which direction will you move in and what kind of movement do you need to do to ensure that you're safe. And the most important part is when you jump into that swimming pool, are you going to say, oh, or are you going to say, hey, I love this? What is your attitude? What's your reaction to a challenging situation or something you haven't faced, or toxicity, or corporate bullying, or what have you? And therefore, a combination of what we decades ago used to say as ASK, attitude, skill, knowledge, is prevalent even today. It's just that the dynamics have changed.
Brilliant, brilliant. Very well explained. And there cannot be a better opening, better preamble to how you have narrated the current situation and explained what exactly empowering employability is all about. So thank you for that, Sahil. Now, see, Sahil, these days I get a lot of panic calls from parents, from students, and these are the students from some of the premier B schools, premier tech colleges. See, it takes 99, 98 percentile to get into this kind of a colleges, but it's heartbreaking to know that the students are struggling to get placed. Just to give you an example, I'm sure we all have come across the data in public domain that roughly around 34, 35 percentage of IITs, IIT Bombay for that matter, has not been able to successfully place their students. Now, that scares me for sure. My question is this for real? What do you think as a practitioner? Why is this happening? Because these are the things which we never heard in the past, at least in the recent past. Why is it that we have to go through all such discussions, deliberations right now? Is it the supply demand mismatch, or is it the problem that you have already explained, that scalability, employability, not necessarily the knowledge, but I'm not skilled enough. Where do you see the challenge, and is this for real? Is this here to stay, or it's just a phenomenon?
So, Anil, you've actually asked me five questions in one question. I'll try and break it up because each question that you've asked is so powerful, and I will do injustice if I don't dissect the questions that you've asked. The first question, I think if you go back in time, not very long ago, people were very happy with 60%, right? The highest one would get is 70%, right? Just 3 or 4 decades ago, a topper would get a 70%, and that person would be a topper. Today, or that was called first class or distinction, whatever the nomenclature was at that point of time, right? Today, you may get a 99.2. A 99.2 may not be enough.
True.
And that is scary, right? Today, we see young toddlers getting certificates of participation, right? And that is, to my mind, very scary. What is also very scary is the whole fact of instant gratification with a generation that we are living with. Now, what is happening with all of this is you have actually, as a system, as a society, we have messed up this whole concept of marks and this whole concept of excellence. Because of which, what we are doing is anything below 90 is not good enough. You've not made the mark. Because anyway, the cutoff is 99 or 98, and therefore 90 is like average. Now, at the cost of generalization, a lot of students are also facing this pressure, undue amount of pressure. On the other hand, you also have pressure which is experienced by the professors who need to give those kind of marks to be lenient enough to ensure that everybody gets an 85 or above. So therefore, the gap between the best and the worst is hardly a delta of 20%. As compared to, sorry to say that, but our generation, where there would be 10% of the batch that, like a typical bell curve, right? 10% of the batch would actually fail in certain subjects because they didn't understand the subject, they didn't understand the vocabulary or sentence formation or mathematical problems. So you would have 10 to 20% of people fail in a subject. You would have 50 to 60% who were just about average, and around 20% who would actually be in the top batch of the class or the subject or whatever. Today, fundamentally, people have moved up and everybody is in the zone of 80 to 99 or 99.99%. What is this doing to people? This is actually making students believe that they are brilliant when they are actually not brilliant.
Oh.
Now, when does the rubber hit the road? They're not able to do 0 to 100 in 6 seconds. And that's when reality hits them. To say, boss, I know all of this. I've got good marks. Why is it that I'm not getting the job of my choice where I can sit in BKC or Neriman Point and get a corner office and do strategy on day one? Because I've got a 99.9%. Doesn't work. It doesn't work. That's not the way things work. And unfortunately, we have not really got them exposed to some of this. And therefore, the chip on the shoulder or the sense of entitlement and that beautiful bubble burst. To make the problem even more difficult and to compound it multifold, my dear friends, to compound the problem multifold, as India Inc., many organizations have become more conservative on hiring because they are looking at quarter on quarter, they are looking at how their results are playing out, they are looking at not maintaining a high bench, trying to reduce cost because growing top line is becoming more and more difficult. In all of this, what earlier used to happen as large tech giants going onto campuses and hiring lakhs of students have now moved to thousands. The ones who used to hire thousands have started hiring hundreds. And the ones who used to hire hundreds have now started hiring in double digit. And therefore, overall, the number of jobs have reduced. At the same time, organizations don't want to compromise on quality. So now it's a double-edged sword, right? Earlier, even if you were just about okay, since there were many roles, you found yourself some role somewhere, some organization, if you were slightly flexible. Today, because the number of roles have reduced, because the skill gap has increased, you see that a lot of people, in spite of having great degrees or passing out from various colleges, are finding it difficult to get an entry-level job.
Sure.
The third and the most important aspect is earlier, people were a lot more flexible. Send me to Raukela, I'll go there, I'll slog it out because I know I'm starting my career.
Mm.
Today, people are saying, hey, what's Raukela? I don't want to go there, right? I want to sit in DLF or I want to sitting in Banjara Hills, right? Or I want to be sitting in a swanky office in BKC. And that is becoming a huge challenge. And therefore, we see a lot of people not showing the kind of flexibility. And the last and the most important aspect, I think, Anil, if you come to think of it, right, the reason why most of us started off doing a job is because we had taken big EMIs for our education and we had to pay those EMIs. What was linked to a job was money. Today, with the creator economy, with the gig economy, a lot of people are making a lot of money. In fact, at times more than what they would earn in a full time job. And therefore, the concept of doing a job and the concept of earning money have got delinked. They've got
Sure.
delinked. And therefore, people are saying, okay, fine, I'm not getting a job. Great, no worries. Let me start my hustle. I'm a great videographer. I know Anil is building Edu on. Anil, these are my portraits. These are my work, or this is my portfolio. I'll help build your entire social media strategy. Guys making big money, right? And therefore, I think this whole flux that we are seeing in the environment today.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I have a follow-up question, in fact, Sahil, with regard to employability skills. Now, often we hear about how by 2030, 70% of our, or roughly 70% of our, let's say, today's existing competencies are going to be obsolete. Our skills are going to be obsolete. Now, that arises a question in our mind. If that is the scenario, then which are the future skills that's going to dominate in the times to come? The change has already started happening. So my question to Sahil is, what, according to you, are the top, let's say, 4 or 5 future skills on your priority list you would certainly want to recommend to
Sure.
students who are wanting to make a transition from campus to corporate?
Sure. So, Anil, I think this is a great question, and the World Economic Forum does a fantastic job of publishing the top skills every year. In the way the world is changing, I think if you haven't, all your followers haven't seen the report, I would encourage them to read the report. That's number one. Number two, personally for Sahil, I think the world is changing at a pace faster than we can ever imagine. And therefore, to my mind, the top skill, right? We've heard of survival of the fittest, we've heard of multiple things over the years. I think the ability to be agile, right?
Mm.
Today, I may be in an environment where I work from office every day. Tomorrow, can I work from home permanently? Just a different environment. Now, should I say, hey, I have a very, very small house and therefore it's difficult? What's the solution? Can I find a co-working space? Can I get into another coffee shop? Can I think of multiple opportunities, avenues where I can solve the problem that is at hand and very, very quickly become comfortable, right? We always say this, it's very good to change roles every 3 4 years, but very few people end up changing roles. The reason is because they get very comfortable in what they're doing and they don't want to do new stuff until someone actually pushes you into a new role, right? Can you be agile? Today, if you're used to a very, very simple thing, right? Going from your home to your office by a certain route, have you tried the four other different routes? Or are you saying, नहीं 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 यार वहां तो ट्रैफिक होता है या वो गली बहुत पतली गली है मैं वहां से क्यों जाऊं whatever whatever whatever, because unless you don't try it out, and I'm giving a very very basic example, you can
Sure.
complicate it till the cows come home. But the point I'm trying to make is, are you agile? And can you attribute and demonstrate agility in everything that you do as part of your existing role in your daily life? Because if you're agile, come what may, whether it's an external situation, internal factors, whatever it is, you will be able to be very resilient. So, agility is point number one. Number two, I think we've come into a world where, call it critical thinking, call it lateral thinking, give whatever jargon you want to it. But I think fundamentally, one has to be able to think differently. We're no longer living in a linear world. And therefore, can you evaluate a problem? Can you evaluate a situation from a multi-dimensional perspective? Are you also in a situation where if there's someone else coming with an alternate perspective, do you look at it in a very fair manner, or do you say no, this is the way it's to be done, this is how it's being done, यहाँ पे ऐसे ही होता है आप ऐसे ही करिए, right? And I think the it's also to do with a little bit of nature of the individual and also to do with the skill. You may be open to trying different things, but it may end up in failure because you haven't followed the process. So, do you understand the process of how do you evaluate options or perspectives in a healthy manner? Skill number two. Skill number three, I think one technical skill is very important. Technology is becoming center stage, right? So, for
Sure.
example, everyone's talking about Gen AI today. The question that I want to say is today, I want to figure out something. I'll get onto any kind of bot and I'll ask a question, I'll get an answer. But am I able to differentiate the quality of the answer basis the quality of the prompt, right? So, for example, I did an experiment, right, just a couple of days back, and I want to share this with all your viewers. I went on to Chat GPT and I wrote, "Who is Sahil Nayar?" All right, I got an answer. I wasn't very happy with the answer. I wrote back, "Who is Sahil Nayar, who recently was awarded as the top 50 HR people to follow in 2024?" I got a different answer. And the third thing I wrote, "Who is Sahil Nayar, who works at a big four consulting organization?"
Hmm. Interesting.
Different parts of the same person. Just the name with the title, with the organization, the name with an accolade. The reason why I did this is because I wanted to see what kind of answers get thrown up when the prompt changes. We're living in a world where we need to have the ability to ask the right questions because answers are available everywhere. But can you ask the right question? Whether you're sitting in a boardroom with independent directors and the entire board, or you're sitting in a classroom with great faculty, or a great summit or a conference that's happened where people from all across the world have come and are dedicating their time to helping you upskill. Or you're sitting in your office and brainstorming on the next big idea for your team or your company. The power of asking the right question. And that is a skill I would attribute for everybody to be supremely successful as they build their careers.
Excellent story. Thank you so much. In fact, Sahil, for dwelling on these two critical points. For sure, agility and Gen AI, undoubtedly, that is the flavor of the season. And yeah, I could not agree more to what you are saying. Now, let me try and pick up the point on tech part. I see people, more specifically the student community, getting little anxious, and they definitely ask this question. Okay, we all know that if we have to progress, if we have to be successful, tech we cannot think of ignoring. That's fine. But has we come to a stage where technology, more specifically AI, chatbot, being digital, is going to take out a lot of our jobs? How do you look at it? Is this for real? Is this going to take your job, my job, and lot many young aspirants who are wanting to make an entry to this corporates? How is tech going to behave? Is it going to slow down? And if I can relate it to the current scenario, you already spoke about that. Thousands hiring numbers have come down to hundreds. So, can we correlate this to? Is that for real, or it is just anxiety, or this phase shall also pass. Nothing to worry about it. What is your take on this?
Sure. I think, Anil, what you're asking is very natural human behavior, right? When the computers came in, I remember a lot of people said, "Oh my God, the computers have come in. They will take away all our jobs," right? And we know that even today, there are so many jobs. When there was evolution in technology, we saw the same thing. And now with Gen AI, we have the same question before us. It goes back to the previous point that I made. The difference will be not between two people just on their skill set. It will be between a person who knows AI and a person who doesn't know AI. It will not be between AI and human. Because at the end of the day, the machine will only learn when we teach the machine. But the question is, if you're going to sit in one corner sitting pretty and think, hey, you know what? My life is secure. I'm all good. I can live life just the way I used to 40 years ago, and I don't need technology. I'm sorry. Because today, technology can do things faster, it can do things better. And when the machine starts learning at a pace faster than what humans learn, you will actually see that a lot of things at the bottom of the pyramid will get forward with technology, with Gen AI, right? Now, the question is, what do you and I do? Do we get scared and say, oh my God, my job's on the line and Gen AI will take my job away? Or do we say, hey, you know what? I can make Gen AI my friend. And what would have earlier taken me, say, 8 hours to prepare a PowerPoint presentation for a fancy deck for a great proposal, today, can I do that in half an hour? If I had a college project to submit, I would always do it half an hour before the deadline. But I felt bad that had I started 2 hours earlier, I would have given a much better output. Now, can I start 15 minutes before and give an output much better, because all I need to do is get the right prompt, know the right websites, get the right script, and then get the right AI platform to put it all together for me with a fancy PPT, great content, and customization from my side, which is where you get the touch. So, the way we approach problems will change. And if we are not able to be agile enough to understand that, and we say, no, I'm old school, I like making my decks on my own, I don't want AI, AI doesn't give the kind of output. Please understand, AI will not give you 100% output. It will give you something which is 50, 60, 70, whatever percent. Now, the question is, at least 50% is done, 60% is done, 70 is done. Now, from 70, you have to come in and take it to 100. But if you think, or if you are limited by your own skill sets that get stuck at 50, then you're competing with AI, because AI has also got the presentation up to 50%.
Sure.
If you're not able to, like we say, roles need to evolve, jobs need to evolve, competencies need to evolve. Otherwise, we all will hit our level of incompetence. So if our competence is stuck at 50, AI is giving me something in 2 minutes, which I would take 2 hours to at 50. I'm competing with AI, my friend. Competing with AI. But if I can say, okay, AI has got me to 50, now my job starts. How do I take this from 50 to 90? So I need to have those skill sets that take me from 50 to 90.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. So, Sahil, now let me change the gear of our discussion and get into something very, very specific as a practitioner. How do you look at it? When you visit a campus for hiring purpose, would you be focusing as an individual practitioner? What's your style? Would you be focusing more around academically brilliant students, or okay, academic credentials are important. Of course, I don't want you to score less than 60%, but your other so-called life skills, so-called employability skills, they are equally important, or both? How do you balance it out, and how do you really take decisions when it comes to whether somebody is in or somebody is out?
See, Anil, the question that you're asking me is a spectrum question, right? It's across the spectrum. But the
Yeah,
irony is that recruiting is a funnel, right? So it's not just about marks on one side or life skills on the other side. It's about saying, I have 1,000 people at the top of the funnel, and I have to bring it down to five
correct.
people who I want to hire. Now, the question is, the only way to move from 1,000 to five is the process of, and some people call it the process of elimination, some people call it the process of selection. Give it whatever name you want. ठीक है, end of the day आपको 1,000 applications हैं, आपको 5 लोग select करने हैं. What is the challenge before us? The challenge before us, number one, is we want to get the best quality. And this is for all recruiters, right?
Sure,
Challenge number
sure.
two, we all have limited time. We all have limited time. If I had 15 days that I could sit aram se, I would do a very robust process and ensure that even the person who got a 79.8%, and because the cutoff was 80% and this person got dropped out, I will ensure this person gets a chance, because that point so and so percent should not deprive this person of a worthy job, because that was a 10 standard or 12 standard or graduation mark sheet, right? But quality, very limited time, limited set of interviewers, multiple hiring to be done across the country. You got to get people hitting the ground running. They got to be on the job. They got to be hitting the ground running to the extent that even before they are like all set to go. Now, with so many challenges, the biggest problem is, what criteria do you apply to
Mm.
select people or eliminate people? Choice is yours. I think the easiest, lowest common denominator, unfortunately, is marks. And that becomes, and I use the word unfortunately because marks should not necessarily decide what you did 5 years, 8 years ago in certain examination on one day which wasn't a good day, and one exam that went bad because of which your aggregate went down. I don't think it's fair. But is there a better way to eliminate? We still haven't got to it as far as non-tech roles are concerned. Tech roles, Very simple. You keep all of this on one side, you give a certain weightage average to it, run a hackathon here and now, gamify it. You see who's doing well, who's able to crack the code, who is able to get the flag up. You're sorted. You're sorted.
Okay.
But for
Sure.
non-tech roles, if I have to hire someone who has to really go and do procurement for me, how do I figure out? If I have to hire someone in supply chain, how do I figure out? If I have to hire an environmentalist, if I have to hire an architect, how do I figure it out? Yeah. I
Sure.
don't think, at least I would be very, very keen to know if any one of your followers are doing anything path breaking or if they have any best practices, please do message me. I would love to learn. But I don't think there is any institute or organization that has a better elimination criteria. And therefore, as much as we would not like it, we resort to marks.
Sure.
Does this mean that this is a deal breaker for students? The answer is no. I have seen in my career many people walk up to me, walk up to other people who I know of, and say, hey, you know what? I couldn't make it for your shortlisting criteria because of this reason. Are you comfortable if I send you my 60-second video interview? And if you like that 60-second video interview, I want to spend 5 minutes with you. All I need is 60 seconds of your time. Anil, tell me who will not give 60 seconds?
Sure.
Anybody would. And in those 60 seconds, if there is enough of a hook for me to spend 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes is enough for me to say, hey, I'll request one of my team members, please interview this person. I think the person's really good. That's all it takes. But sometimes we get so blinded by the fact of saying, oh, I didn't get shortlisted. What do I do? It's so difficult. And we get into that downward spiral, right? I think that's
Right.
we avoid it. Think of innovative and creative ways to find the needle in the haystack for employers and for potential employees, candidates. How do you really cut through this chase of marks or shortlisting criteria to make it out there and say, I think I need 5 minutes of your time. And this is the reason why I'm so passionate to work in your organization. Understand the organization, not just read the balance sheet. But if you can say, hey, you know what? In your organization, these are your top three problems today. These are the skill sets I have, and this is how I can solve some of those problems, even at a grassroots entry level. And these are the three ideas I have. That's what people are looking out for. Because there's water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. If you are that drop of water with whatever percentage of oxygen in it that can help bring in a breath of fresh air, who wouldn't like it?
Excellent. Very well articulated. Thank you for that, Sahil. One
Thank you.
question when I interact with student community, they often ask is, okay, let me flip it and, ask you as a practitioner, when you visit campuses, would you be putting too much of emphasis on how premier is that B school is or that engineering college is versus a candidate who is competent enough? Doesn't matter. He might not be from a tier one kind of a B school or engineering college, but somebody who is hardworking and has acquired certain skills and can articulate and might have asked you, can you give me 60 seconds of time? And I'm here to. Somebody who is passionate, somebody who is creative enough, somebody who is forthcoming and has holistically developed competencies. What would be your pick most of the time?
I think, Anil, the straightforward answer is yes. And I want to take this opportunity through your channel to actually make a plea to a lot of leaders out there as well. I think the biggest responsibility and onus that we as leaders have is the ability to take bets on people. I think somewhere we've become so careful and cautious and guarded that, we shouldn't go wrong. But I think the best leaders that I have seen in my life and the best leaders that I have worked with and some of the best roles that I have performed in have happened only because someone decided to take a bet on me.
Sorry,
And
I hate to break your flow of thought, Sahil, but
no
then
problem.
we run into the risk of people branding that our decisions are feeling based. They are not fact based. They are not scientific. How do we counter that?
I'll give you a classic example, and I'm happy that you paused me to ask that question, Anil, because otherwise, some of this may sound like a lot of gyan, but to tangibilize that gyan and to make it relevant and give you a real life situation, right? When I was building one of my teams, I actually hired someone from sales into HR. And a lot of people ask me saying, hey, you know what? This person doesn't know recruiting. This person has never recruited. We'll have to spend so much time training this person. And how will we go about it? This person has done sales all her life. My answer was pretty simple. I said, I have evaluated her on her ability to close her sales targets. The competency that she brings on this team is the fact that we will now focus on closing our recruitment not just with quality but also with aggressive tats, with aggressive turnaround times. And she is going to work as not only an individual recruiter, where she will first shadow some of you all, but she will also be the recruitment PMO and help each one of you with all her strategies that she has used, from how do you look at a suspect to become a prospect to then a closure, which is very, very similar if you look at it from a candidate perspective, right? Today, you may have a candidate who's not looking out, but you want to headhunt that person. How do you build interest in that candidate? How do you then change that interest into a potential role? And how do you then sell the skill sets of the candidate and the role to the candidate for a perfect fit, and do all of this at amazing speed. I said that's the competence she is going to bring on the team that we don't have today. And I think she is brilliant at it from a sales perspective. Of course, she'll need a little bit of hand holding, a little bit of orientation to do the same thing in HR, but I don't see too much of a difference. And Anil, you'll be very, very happy to know, when we track the metrics over a 6 month to 1 year period, it did take some time. We had a little bit of teething issues, but 6 months to 1 year period, amazing. And all I'm saying is it just takes a little bit of thinking outside the box, number one. And number two, taking a bet on people. At best, what will happen? It'll be a wrong hire. I made a mistake. I'll own my mistake. Don't people make mistakes? Everyone makes mistakes. Why are we so scared of making mistakes? But you take a bet on someone, you empower them, you trust them, and you see how well they perform.
True, true. No, absolutely. Could not agree more when you are saying that, not necessarily every time we go through a scientifically, a cutter kind of a model to assess. And, certainly, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to go with your gut feeling also and take a bet on somebody. Sure, sure. Now, I think we are towards the fag end, and probably my question also, one observation is typically in this part of the world, typically in India and in academic institutions in India, we have an activity, a phenomenal annual activity called, campus hiring interviews or campus hiring activity that helps. But in the Western world, there is nothing called a campus hiring process, and the onus is not on the institutions. At best, they would probably organize maybe career fair, and then you are on your own. We will focus on developing your capabilities. Then hunting a right kind of a role is up to you. Now, to what extent you are seeing in places like India, in geographies like India, are we still stuck on to that old method of, okay, here is an institution who would take care of my placement. I just need to make an entry, rest everything becomes their accountability. How do you look at it? Are we changing?
See, I think, Anil, unfortunately, and I wouldn't be able to trace this back to when it started and why it started. But over the years, I have just been seeing that this is increasing multifold. Even at the time of soliciting admissions, one of the most important selling points for institutions is placements, right? Whether it is the highest package, whether it is 100% placements, whether it is the brand of organizations that come on campus, what have you. And this really worries me because the reason why it worries me so much, and I'm just trying to see how do I articulate this best, because I can actually feel the pain, because many institutions promise this, and when they don't end up delivering, there is very little that a student can do. Please understand that you and I come from middle class families. We are blessed. We are all right. But there are a lot of people who don't even come from middle class families. They come from the lower strata. And parents actually take huge loans by putting pledging their gold, pledging their property, because they believe that if they educate their children will repay them multifold, or they will do well in life, be successful. And when they don't get these kind of placements and don't get jobs, this has a significant impact on mental health. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you, and slightly off tangent but very important, is because a lot of people reach out to me on LinkedIn with severe cases of depression, with being in situations where they have taken huge loans, and now because they haven't got a job, they're not able to repay those loans and are in very difficult situations, right? The question that I sit back and ask myself, why make a commitment on placement when that isn't your core competence? And I think educational institutions also need to ask themselves, is that the reason why they are existing in the first place? Of course, that's a great way to fill seats, but then is that the right way to fill seats? If you have no control over the number of jobs, if you have no control over the quality of education that you're so called imparting, because even if companies come, students don't end up getting selected, right? Then it's a problem. And therefore, why take this problem on your head when you have limited control over it? Why not just say that, you know what, we will get you the best faculty, we will have the most rigorous program. These 2 years will be very difficult because you will hardly sleep, but you will have the right skill sets, the right knowledge, and we will build a fantastic human being. And we will give you enough time in the last 3 months to go out and scout for yourself. We will provide assistance, but not a guarantee, or not out there giving you a job. And I think that paradigm shift needs to come in, because what's happening now is the luring of students to come in and fill seats, and the inability to get them placed for various reasons, not just their quality, not just in terms of the dynamics of the job market, but multiple reasons are playing out, because of which people are getting degrees but not getting their first check. And I think this needs to be relooked at. I think the bubble is yet to burst, but definitely there is a bubble out there.
Thank you so very much for your time today. I'm little conscious of the time, and hence, thank you so much for giving us more time than that we agreed. And always a pleasure hearing you, getting your wisdom shared with the larger community. Sahil, you're doing a great job with your channel, with your bites, regular bites. So I would request student community, if genuinely they want to learn, they should subscribe and get into your shows. And thank you so much again for agreeing to come on to our show and share your wisdom with student community majorly. And I thought this would be an apt title. And thanks for agreeing to this. And thank you so much. And we look forward to having more such collaborations in future. And Thank you so very much and have a great evening ahead.
Sure.
Bye
Thank
bye
you so much.
and you take
Thank you.
care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.